What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the show. I've got another awesome conversation for you today, speaking with Roy, formerly known as StrongLegs, who is a former Counter Strike professional player and caster, who then moved over to Valorant and became the IGL of Team Renegades early on in the game's release, and has since been the IGL and captain of a number of free agent teams as he scouts and develops talent and tries to build up towards making it into the Pro League. He and I had the opportunity of working together on a team a few months ago, and we just narrowly missed qualifying for the Challengers League in North America. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Roy. All right, what's up, everybody? I'm back with another podcast episode, this time joined by my good friend, Roy, the artist formerly known as StrongLegs, sometimes still known as StrongLegs.
Here and there.
And I think we're going to have a pretty cool conversation because Roy is a highly competitive Counter Strike, Valorant, IGL, good brain for the game, and also has a lot of sort of background in like coaching and player development and that kind of stuff. So we're going to get into a lot of topics
For
that
sure.
might help you become a professional esports player potentially. So, Roy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, dude. Just chilling. You know how it is. Been doing a lot of individual coaching lately, and it's been pretty fun actually. I can't lie.
It's kind of rewarding helping other people like achieve things that they didn't think that they could, right?
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
Awesome. Well, let me start you off with kind of an easy question. Well, maybe not that
Okay.
easy, but a broad question that you can kind of riff on for a little bit. What do you think makes a great leader in a competitive space?
You're just starting me off with this question, eh? Just off the rip, the deepest question possible.
Just
Um,
whatever floats your boat. I think it's interesting to kind of like hear your definition of
for
that
sure.
because everybody's is a little bit different.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And it's not even everybody's is opinion is different on what leadership really is, but even like my own perception on leadership has like evolved so much over like the past 6 years, last 2 years, and the last 6 months. Like my perception on leadership has just evolved so much. But for me, I think the number one, I'm not gonna rank it. I'm just gonna just throw things out there, okay? But I think a very important aspect of leadership for me right now, in terms of like a competitive environment, especially in gaming, is like environment, like creating the environment, and that can come in like many forms, but just generally like creating the vibe, setting like the expectations for like the work ethic, the involvement, the passion, having like goals, having like so many things. And I do think that for me, I used to have this like idea of leadership being like, I'm going to take control of everything and people need to listen to me. And I had this like more of this like quote unquote alpha. I really hate that word, quote unquote, like alpha perception on leadership. But lately I've been thinking along more of like leadership is more just like it, kind of like knowing what you have, like what kind of tools you have, what kind of personalities you have on the team, and like creating the best recipe for that. And I think that for me is like the number one thing is just like you you can't copy paste other people's ideas and other people's like sort of environments. Like you have to work with what you have and you have to create an environment with what you have. So like you input your own personality on it. And then from everybody within your dynamic and within your circle, you're kind of like taking those tools and you're creating like the best environment for everyone to like to shine in, tailoring to people's personalities and sort of like creating this like almost like very unique team dynamic with like very complex personalities, obviously.
Cool. I really like that answer, and I guess it's probably worth giving a little bit of background. We worked on a team together for like 4 months
Good.
or so. You were the IGL, and I came in to sort of be like the coach, more so on sort of like I guess I would say more of like the team dynamic side of things. You
Hmm.
handled most of the strategy for most of the time that we worked together, but
Yeah, for sure.
I thought we had a pretty cool dynamic, and I just wanted to get that out there because we'll probably touch on some stuff with like specific examples from the team that we were both on.
For sure.
Um, but I think that's really cool. My next question was going to be building a successful team culture and like how you do that. And so maybe we can just kind of like
Just
expand
bounce
on
into
your
that.
your answer. Um, do you have anything in particular that you like look for in players that you're trying to kind of like work with to build a team culture that is successful?
Yeah, there are some pretty specific things I look for now. And again, this is a lot of this stuff has been I learned this a while ago, and a lot of the stuff I've just recently learned. Like it's just like leadership is crazy, man. Like you constantly learning and you're constantly evolving your perception on it. But I think for me, the one thing, if I was to build a fresh team, like the things that I would look for, I'm looking for specifically for players that can. Okay, let me preface this question. Okay, so disclaimer: everybody feels pressure to some degree, like almost everyone, unless you have some sort of condition where you're just oblivious to that kind of pressure. Um, Most people feel pressure, but there are people that can like play on the side, like kind of sort of like on the side of that pressure and just like really not be influenced or affected by it. And I think these are the people like Jakey on C9, for example, he's just happy to be there, dude. He's literally just happy to be there. And like that, the happy to be there people are just like they're above that pressure. So for me, I think when I'm looking for players and I'm looking to build a successful like team culture, I'm looking for people that can like have fun. Because when you have people that can have fun, that means that they're like able to operate above the stress and they are able to operate above the pressure. And that's something that it's so difficult to like teach. Like how do like, dude, how do I teach a 16-year-old how to like play above pressure? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like at that age, you either have it or you don't have it. Like if you're 18, 19, like you have it or you don't have it. Like, yes, you can develop it, obviously, but I don't know what the tools for that are. And like, I think I do to some degree. I've read a lot of like books on sports psychology and a lot of like documentaries and like a lot of interviews with like professional coaches and players and blah 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 blah. But it seems like the process to like get to that point where people are playing above that pressure and above that stress, it just takes so long. There's so much like mental rewiring and mental reconditioning. But there are just some kids, dude. Like there are some players that are literally just they just have it naturally. Like
Mhm.
they're just operating on a level that is naturally above that pressure and above that stress.
Yeah, I definitely think that some people just kind of like forget to be afraid. For whatever reason, maybe they just like they haven't realized what the stakes are yet, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe they just are at a place mentally where the consequences of making a mistake don't really matter to them for whatever reason.
Yes.
But definitely being able to play with like just like a fearless freedom is something that is very hard to achieve, especially if you're like trying to achieve it. It just kind of has to like be there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just natural. Like you have it or you don't have it, dude.
Yeah, 100%. And there definitely are ways to train that, but like you said, it takes a long time. And if you have like an ingrained sort of habitual pattern of feeling the pressure and then having to kind of like deal with that in like a brute force way where it takes you out of the moment, takes you out of like
Mm-hmm.
the team environment, it can be really really hard to come back from that. And
For sure.
I mean, as we experienced during the qualifiers, like every round just gets a little bit more
More and
pressure.
more stressful.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
more stress. You're playing until 3 in the morning, and
Dude,
it's
yeah.
your career on the line. It's very very difficult to deal with.
For
And
sure.
unless you've been there, you just like there's no way to train that, right? Because it's just you nobody. I don't think anybody in our team. I mean, maybe you have because you've been playing competitive games for like what 10 years now, like in some
Like
capacity,
7.
7 years.
Mhm.
But it's pretty hard to get to that point where it's like this game is the end if you if you don't win.
Right.
You don't encounter that often in your
Hmm.
career. Um,
Yeah, most definitely.
cool. Well, yeah. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Handling pressure, obviously, it's sort of an innate skill. As far as other characteristics of people that you find to be like highly beneficial to making it onto a team, because I know that there's a lot of people, I see this all the time, people are posting they're like looking for team, people are like, why am I not getting an opportunity? If you were like a talent scout, what sort of other characteristics as far as like comms or confidence or agent pool or flexibility or maybe like work ethic outside of the game, what sort of other things are you looking for in somebody who could go pro, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think we should separate these into two separate sections, okay?
Sure.
There's a section where I have to do a talent scout on people and I have no insight into the intangibles.
Hmm.
And then there's a section where I do have some insight into the intangibles. Like I have access to their team VODs, or I have access to like maybe like their matches, or just like I can see their mannerisms and I have insight. I have just like this special insight, whether it's like through a VOD or I know these people personally, or I've like seen them play like with my own eyes, like at a LAN or something. I think there's like two separate sections. So the first one is the kind of like I don't have the access to the intangibles, so these are just like on the surface level of things. I'm kind of starting to lean into like I can see why a coach like MCE is so successful at talent scouting, is because he looks for people that are like they're not risk averse, like they're willing to take risks and they're willing to mess up and they're willing to make mistakes. And even though they're having like they could be having an off game or they're having a poor game, like they're so persistent with their like confidence and they're so persistent with their play style. And like this is such like an important trait for me, like especially because this game is really stressful and this game is really like chaotic and random and some games you're popping off. And I really just want players that are just like immune like to like feeling discouraged. I really want people who are just like fierce, like really strong competitors and like have like really strong innate levels of confidence that can like be displayed in their gameplay, right? Then there's like there are things like statistics and like stuff like that. Like we're not gonna I don't know if you want to go deeply into like stats analytics or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can take it or leave it. I think that all stats sort of come with the context of it.
For sure.
It doesn't really matter unless you actually like watch the gameplay to see where those stats come from.
Exactly. And certain roles have like more emphasis on certain stats, right? Like are these people doing well in first kills, first deaths? Like as a sentinel player, as a player who's anchoring, what same thing for duelists? Like are they successful in their opening kills? Blah blah blah. Blah. Like there's so many stats to go off of. Those are like that's like an obvious talking point though. That I'm sure there's many people that have talked about that. So I'm not really looking for that. But then we go into sort of like the other side, right? Which is like if I do have access to the intangibles, like if I was to build a team, dude, like straight up, if I'm building a team, I'm requesting VODs from every player I'm about to try out. Like,
makes sense.
Like if you're an upcoming player and you're listening to this and you're on like a tier 3, tier 4 team, like try to keep recordings of all your matches, dude. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Like I'm sure I'm not Einstein of talent scouting. I'm sure many other coaches are gonna ask you for the same thing, right? So if I do have access to these VODs, dude, I'm looking for things like comms. And not just like, oh, is this person have like the necessary comms? Because like, dude, the fundamental comms, like that's a baseline. Like you gotta have that. Like you gotta have the peek off me's, you gotta have the come with me's. Like you gotta have these like comms, right? That's like a baseline. That's like a minimum for almost, I think the standard, that's pretty standard for almost everyone, I would say. But I'm looking for things like, how do these people, what are their tilt habits? Like what happens when you get spammed through a smoke in a very important round, right? Like, are you just sitting there complaining and just like giving the illusion to your team that things are going wrong when really things aren't going that wrong? Like, yeah, you just got unlucky. Like, do you have complaining habits that will like micro frustrate your team over time? Like, do you have things like, are you an uplifter? Like, are you the person that's like picking people up? Like, yeah, don't worry about it, man. Let's just go next. Like those intangibles are just like insane for me, especially when I'm watching these like I'm watching challengers, dude, and I could just tell that these players are just feeling so much pressure, dude. Like they're feeling, and you can too, right? It's pretty obvious.
100%.
Like, dude, they feel it, man. And it's like I'm watching people that I've been watching my whole career play in a completely different play style. Like people are losing themselves. People are like not taking the right risks, or all their decisions feel forced, or it just looks like they're not playing in the moment and they're not allowing themselves to flow or like enter some sort of like flow state. Like you can just tell, dude. So in these kind of environments, like you really need people that are just like happy to be there. You really need people that are just like picking you up, laughing when you make mistakes, laughing when they make mistakes, just keeping the environment as like lighthearted as possible, so that stress and like that sort of like pressure is just so much easier to hold, So 100%. I'm looking. So just to sum that up, I'm pretty much looking for like players that have like do they have good tilt habits? Like what do they do when they tilt? Right? Everybody gets tilted at some point. Like they get upset or they get frustrated. Like that's fine. But what does that look like in reality?
And
I'm looking.
Maybe how long does that last for too? Because some people can get frustrated. It's like, oh, you get spammed through a smoke, super unlucky, loses you the round.
Oh, for sure.
And you can be like, man, like that sucks. But then if that next round you're like not in that same spot because you're afraid of getting spammed again, and then the next round like you're playing more scared for like
you become more and more scared of risk.
It becomes like a very sort of self-fulfilling prophecy of bad things happening basically at that point.
For sure.
Cool. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. As far as maybe digging into those tilt habits a little bit, I think one thing that a lot of esports professionals and wannabe professionals especially, but even the pro players that I've listened to and watched play, a lot of people struggle with giving and receiving criticism within a team environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious what your thoughts are on like the correct way to make changes in how people are approaching or playing the game or certain situations without like destroying their confidence or making them feel attacked, because it's a really, really delicate balance to do that.
Yeah, and that's something that I personally have struggled with for a long time. I feel like it wasn't until like maybe this last like 8 to 12 months where I've like kind of started to understand like that giving feedback and receiving feedback and giving criticism is truly an art form, dude.
Mhm.
It really is an art form. And I think a lot of people are very unique, and you've experienced that yourself. Like a lot of people have very unique personalities, and like the threshold of their psyche is just everyone's on different levels, dude. Like some people get tilted very easily. Some people have like they feel like they're in a fortress. Like it's impossible to tilt these people. So it really depends. But for me, um, I would say that probably the most important thing is to just like connect with that person. Like just connect with them. Just kind of understand who they are as a person. Understand, what makes them afraid, what makes them stressed, what makes them happy, what in what way do they enter flow state, what way do they not enter flow state. And I'm kind of just listening, understanding who these players are, and just understanding where they come from, and sort of like their mannerisms. And like once you really like kind of connect with these players and like, okay, I kind of have an idea who Elevated is, or I kind of have an idea of who Roy is, then I can start to like give them feedback. Like, some people can handle feedback in team environments. Some people need feedback in a private environment where, like, and this is sort of a side point, but also kind of an important point. But at the end of the day, dude, people are scared to lose their positions on teams. Like,
Mhm.
and then the higher up you go, the probably I imagine the more that fear exists. Where like they don't want to be scapegoated, they don't want to be like the target of like focus. They don't want to feel like they're the problem. So a lot of people are trying to like tippy toe around this sort of problem. So I think there is like a fine art in terms of like when to give feedback and how to give feedback. But I think if in terms of like giving constructive criticism and giving feedback, I really think the right way is just like don't copy paste whatever you think exists beforehand. Like every team environment is unique, every player is unique. We all have
Mhm.
like pretty unique personalities and pretty unique like triggers. Just connect with the players, really understand who they are, and just try to be as straightforward as possible. Like some people, I think people like you and I think we both kind of agreed on that a while ago, where it's like, dude, you can just tell me straight up, like, hey, I don't like the way you're playing long because X, Y, Z, right? Like, give me actual reasons for why
Right.
you don't like what I'm doing, and we just take it, right? Like, we just take it as is, no problems, no worries. I'm not upset by it. I'm not affected by it. All is good. And there are a lot of players that even like young players, dude, that I've played with who can just take feedback to the chin, no problem. Like straight up, like Darkus is one of those players. Like he's so he's so blunt, dude. I love that. I love that about him. Like he's straight up so blunt. And there are people like that who are just extremely blunt. They're totally cool with just like arguing with you for hours on end about stuff until you guys come to like a resolution. And there
Right.
are people who they just can't take it like that. Like they need a little bit of like, hey, like I really like the way you're playing this spot. But
Compliment sandwich, right?
yes, exactly. Just say like, hey, you're doing really well in this area, but when this is happening, I think we're not really on the same page, or you're not really doing it that well, and then you kind of go towards like, okay, but try this time, or try that time, and I think there's so many like different approaches. It's really hard to like give a overall thing, but I would say definitely say like the most important thing, man, is just like don't copy paste what you think works. Like
Yeah.
it honestly doesn't. It doesn't work, bro. And I would actually pay money just to like hear the opinion of other coaches on this, because I feel like I'm pretty confident that they've stumbled on like a similar sort of like understanding of like every person is unique. We need to approach every person differently.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest things that I have recognized, even from just like my short stint of working with you guys, is the power of one-on-ones. And I feel like one-on-one conversations a lot of times get a bad connotation in esports teams, because there is sort of like this culture of like going behind people's backs and like
Facts.
backstabbing and,
Oh yeah,
oh,
for
I'm
sure.
trying to get this guy off my team so I can get my friend in, that kind of stuff. But like if you can, as the leader of the team or as the coach of a team, if you can just one-on-one with each player, like you're saying, you have to kind of give individual time to learn who people are and to be able to give individual feedback. It's really, really important, because like you said, some people you literally just need to like listen to their problems, and some people you need to be like, you're doing this wrong and this wrong. Go practice that for like an hour and come back. And like those two ways of saying like essentially the same thing can have the same outcome if it's like given to the right person at the right time.
For sure. And then to add on top of that, like there are elements of some people are visual learners. Some people are like, I do it by like trial and error learners. Like literally everyone just has such a different like kind of like learning flow and learning mechanisms. Like you really just need to like truly understand what kind of players you have for sure.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question for you.
Sure, man.
What do you think is like one of the major things that's holding a lot of like tier 2 and tier 3 players back from taking the next step? Because from what I've seen, everybody's mechanics from like maybe tier 2, low tier 2 up to tier 1 is fairly comparable as far as like shooting and movement.
Yeah,
and
mechanically.
maybe not utility usage to some extent, but like
for sure.
the mechanical side of things is all good.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
what other things can people start working on to like take the next step?
Yeah, man. So I've actually been doing like VOD reviews for people that are on teams, like in the top 30, top 35 VLR. And I've come to learn that probably the number one thing, and this is going to sound super cliche, okay, bear with me, but it is discipline, dude. Some of these players have no discipline, like zero discipline, dude. And I'm talking like in scrims, like, dude, you've already turned around into a 5v3. Like, why are you still going for more? You know, yeah. It's like a lot of these players, I feel like, are struggling with like this balance of how to be like an ant and work within the hive and how to be a superhero, right? Like, you got to be able to balance both, dude. And I think a lot of people in NA are maybe hyper fixated on just individually getting signed, that they are literally developing poor habits as a result of this sort of like this drive to just like succeed individually, that they're like kind of missing the point of team play. Like, like they really are, dude. And it's like you have to be willing to compromise your individual play style just a little bit. Like especially when you've already like won the team the round. Like you're an analyst, dude. You understand like 5v3s are already a high ass percent, you know? Yeah. Like the percent of you winning a 5v3 is already crazy high.
Yeah.
So like
it's like 90%.
Yeah, crazy, right? It's like almost unlosable unless you really mess up. So it's like, why is there like rampant lack of discipline, dude? Like rampant, like no overheating in every scenario possible. No sense of like, okay, I've done my job. Now I tell people like, hey, come trade off me now. I tuck in a corner. I play my role, and then we play a little bit more dynamic from there. Like there's so little discipline, dude. And I think that level of discipline will help a lot of people build the right habits. Because at the end of the day, man, when it comes to matches, you're gonna, and you know this because you've been competing for a long time as well. And if you don't know this and you're listening in, at the end of the day, when you're playing in extremely high stress environments, you're gonna default back to your instinct and your intuition.
Yes, that is so key. That is so key. Whatever you do normally, habitually, is what is going to come out on match day, like 100% of the time.
100%, dude. Like, dude, I've played matches where I legitimately felt like I was on autopilot, dude.
Yeah,
you know, like
that's kind of how you want to be, to be honest. in some sense.
Only if you have the right habits, right? Like, you want to be consciously or unconscious incompetence, blah 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 blah. But you want to be at the highest level, which is unconscious competence, where it's like you've already rewired all your poor habits, and now you're allowing yourself to flow. That's where you want to be. But all of these players are not nowhere near that level, dude. And like they're literally riding on their mechanics. But like, dude, once you enter challengers, man, like you're playing against people like Governor. You're playing against people like, you know, I can't even think of like Penny and Oxy, and like these kids are just so cracked. Like the level of crackness between all these players is like up in the percents, like in the 1%, like 1% difference in how their mechanics, you know, like
right
at that point, like it's just like it's all about habits, dude. You have good habits, you have bad habits. Are you prepared? Have you set yourself up for success? And I feel like a lot of these players aren't doing that, man. And they're really not developing the right habits. And you know, now that we've sort of talked on discipline, I would say that the other thing is like really understanding what a work ethic is. And I think I don't know. I'm gonna go on call me out if I'm wrong, okay?
Go off, King.
But I swear there is a problem in esports with like the grinding mindset, dude, where people think that more time is better. And to some degree, I think I do agree that obviously if you put in a lot of time, you're going to improve at a bit of a more rapid pace. But I would say that the quality of time, like more quality time equals more improvement versus time equals improvement, right? So that means that if I'm putting in 8 hours a day or 10 hours, let's say a lot of these kids are putting in like 8 to 10 hours a day, which is I think normal, which I mean normal in esports, but still like crazy to think about in like real life. Because like who the
Yeah.
hell is putting in 10 hours a day, 7 days a week? Like literally no one. But in esports, it's like 10 hours a day is like pretty normal. But a lot of these kids are playing 10 hours a day, but they're just like, I feel like they're just mindlessly playing the game, dude. Like there's no objective. There's no clear aspects of their gameplay that they need to be working on. There's no like direction. There's no, it's just empty sort of hours that they're putting in. Like, yeah, your intuition is slightly improving. Yeah, your aim and the way you fight your positions is slightly improving. But like your decision making speed, your ability to process situations, your ability to process like so many like important aspects of the game are just simply not being actively and consciously worked on. And this is what I'm talking about. It's like there's no, I feel like a lot of these players at a tier 3, tier 4 level are not like practicing with like hard intent.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, I'm sure they mean well, and I'm sure they either like they're there to, they want to improve, dude. No one wants to not improve. Everybody wants to improve. But it's like there's a difference between like wanting to improve and actually approaching it with like a truly practical and like effective and efficient way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think quite a bit of this comes back to, and I think I've talked with you about this a little bit, which is just that the esports like career path is
Mm-hmm.
not like comparable to what it is in traditional sports where, you know, I was being coached by somebody when I was like 4 years old, right? And I had a coach somewhat guiding me for like 18 or 20 years of
Mm-hmm.
my athletic time. Whereas in esports, you reach the top often by just, sitting in your bedroom, playing games
Literally.
after game after game after game after game. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody's like, hey, you're really good. Here's a shot, right? And so there's no sort of like structure. And
100%.
this will probably come in time. And, honestly, this is one of the reasons that I wanted to get into esports is to like kind of try and help people understand that this is what it actually takes to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're absolutely correct, which is that, if somebody were to compare two players, let's say you took two players who are both at, let's say Immortal 1. Immortal 1 is sort of like the cutoff. If you're Immortal 1, I think you probably could become a professional player with the right approach. Because I think mechanically, those people are pretty good at the game.
Didn't T1 ban place in like silver when he started playing Valorant?
Yeah, I don't know.
Something crazy like that. I swear, I don't know if I could be totally gaslighting both of us right now. I'm not 100% sure. But I swear it was T1 ban. Like there was a pro that is an NA that he literally placed in like silver, like when he started playing the game. And it was like his first FPS game or his first like sort of like mouse and keyboard game. And like,
Yeah.
look at him now. Isn't that
Yeah.
wild?
I mean, basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you took two players that are comparable in level right now, and let's say it's a level that reasonable to think that they could become a pro player,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them took the approach of playing, 15 to 20 games a day, just playing ranked over and over and over. Maybe they have a duo, that helps a little bit to get a little bit of teamwork. But let's just say they play 20 games of ranked every day with a duo, and then the other person plays 8 games of ranked a day, and then they take like 2 or 3 coaching sessions a week with, let's say, somebody like you, or some other person who's experienced in player development and like just has the experience of like what it is to be a professional player.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee that the person who plays 8 games a day and has like a mentor show them the way to actually improve and give them the structure to actually improve is going to reach a level at like maybe 2 or 3 or even 4 times the rate that the person who's just grinding the game. Like it really is so cut and dry.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, bro.
Because like you're just going to plateau doing the brute force method, and you may spend, you might go from like, let's just use ranks as an example. Let's say you go to Immortal 1 to Immortal 2,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes you 75 games, and then there's just something that's keeping you from hitting that next level, and you spend the next 150 games just Mortal 2, Mortal 2, back to Mortal 1, back to Mortal 2, back to Mortal 1. It just like, if you don't have any sort of like investigative like part of your brain that's like, why am I stuck here? It's not just like I'm just gonna like brute force my way through this problem. It's like, what is happening that's keeping me here? Why am I not evolving as a player? And sometimes that takes an outside person to be like, this is what the problem is. But you can also just do it yourself too. If you like take the approach of, VOD reviewing yourself, like take notes on your gameplay. Like these things sound kind of like cheesy. People are like, why would I ever, I'd rather just like play the game. Why would I watch my game back that I just won and like literally have a journal next to me and write down every single time I die and why that happened? Like that will actually make you a better player
for sure, faster
than just playing another game at ranked. 100%.
Yeah. I think this could be even more easily summed up to like learning how to learn, right? Like,
yeah.
A lot of people, dude, a lot of people watch VODs and they just copy paste stuff. Like, oh, I'm learning a lot from this VOD. I learned this new setup and I learned this and I learned that and I learned that. And then you ask them like the ins and outs of like, okay, why are they running this? What does this do for your team? How do you play off this? What are the options you have from this? And then they go, I'm not sure. And then like you can clearly tell like, okay, they think that copy pasting is like a form of learning, but they're not really truly learning, right? Like anyone could, it's just you're just playing a memory game at that point. Like you're literally just taking a concept and you're just copy pasting it and you're just pretending like you know what you're doing. But like there are so many ins and outs of like why these things are happening and why people are doing these things and like the context of the round. Like, oh, they have more ults than us. We're at an economy advantage. We're at an economy disadvantage. Like there's so many like different like dynamic elements. And like a lot of these kids, bro, just don't know how to learn. Like they really just don't know how to learn. Like they're just, and they don't, and some people don't know what they're like. It's like they're watching the same VOD, but him and I are getting completely different things from that VOD, right? Like we're learning completely separate things. We're noticing different things. And that goes back to what you were saying, which is like, it's better to just like get a mentor or get somebody to help you and like provide you advice. Cause that will inevitably help you. Like I've learned a lot of things in the last 7 years. And if you're 16 and you're 15, 16, 17, and you're on the come up, you should be trying to actively connect with these people that can offer you better, like, better perspective and then better, like sort of like goal oriented hours instead of just like mindless grinding.
Yeah, 100%. Oh man, there's something that I was going to say based off of that, and now I have no idea what it is. So we'll just go on to the next topic.
Yeah, it'll come back. I'm sure.
Let's switch things up a little bit. I'm just a little curious. What cued the change from Roy to StrongLegs, or from StrongLegs to Roy? Are these two different people? Are these different personas that you embody?
I wish it was that cool, honestly. It really is not that cool. I just like the way Roy looks. I think it's really clean. I really thought my name was more common, but I guess not a lot of people have the name Roy for some reason.
Okay.
So it's kind of cool that I could just be Roy and everyone just knows who I am. Like if I was like an Alex or if I was like a Chris, like no offense to Alex's and Chris's out there. like I feel like making my name Alex or making my name Chris might just be a little hard because like a lot of people have that name. Sure. But Roy's clean, and like when I'm doing like logo, or I'm doing like graphic work or like graphics for like whatever I'm doing, or like even in game, it just looks so much neater. Just have like a 3-letter name versus like StrongLegs, which is a massive name. But I still identify with StrongLegs, right? Like StrongLegs is such a cool concept to me. It's like it's about carrying your weight, it's about carrying your improvement, it's about carrying the burden of success. Like there's so many elements to StrongLegs that I still like extremely identify with. Like in no way, shape, or form I want to eliminate that. But Roy is also Roy, and Roy is StrongLegs. So at the end of the day, it literally does not even matter, honestly.
Okay, you got to hire some like crazy tattoo artist to get like a StrongLegs in like letterized into creating the Roy, and then just like get that on your arm or something like that.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind when I get shitty tattoos.
Okay, so back to maybe a little bit more of a serious topic. You have recently kind of come off of a bit of a break from competing. Obviously, after we worked together, we went out in like the round of 8 or something like that, round of 16, round of 8 in the last qualifier for challengers. You tried to keep the team going for like another month or two afterwards, but then just realized that you'd kind of hit some sort of breaking point. And I was kind of curious what that experience was like, because like we were just talking about, people think that they can just reach their goals by just grinding forever, but both you and I have hit burnout many times in our life, probably at this point. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what your perception of what that felt like, and then how you kind of think you could go about managing burnout during a grind, like in the future, based off of what you learned.
Yeah, this is such an intricate topic. Um, it's crazy because I haven't experienced burnout in the way that other people have. So my experience with burnout is pretty unique. But dude, I'm like a workhorse. Like I can work for 12 to 14 hours a day for like months, years on end, as long as I believe in the project.
Mhm.
Right. And for me, that's a unique thing. And I'm sure other people share this, but I can only speak for myself. But for me personally, when I believe in what I'm doing and I believe in the project, I almost feel immune to burnout. But then I realized that like on the path to success, you're going like your path to success is literally like a really shitty crypto wave. Like it's like a shit coin, dude. It's like it's going up, it's going down, you're going up, you're going down. Sometimes you're going higher than your previous peak. Sometimes you're going lower than your previous peak. Sometimes you're going lower than your lowest value. You know, it's like it's just an up and down curve to success. And at the end of the day, like you're not always gonna be feeling great about what you're doing and like believe in everything that you're doing. So like burnout can come in many forms. But for context here, my last team did not die because I was burnt out. My last team died because we had terrible synergy. We were all playing on like completely different wavelengths. It felt like.
Fair enough.
But afterwards, when I like took a break for like 3 weeks, which literally felt like my only break I've had in a long time. Because even when I took vacation, even when I went to Japan, when I went to all these places, I was still on a team, so I was still thinking about the team often. So I didn't
Right.
really feel like a break. But this last break that I went on, like 2 to 3 week break, like I had no team to think about. Like it was a true 2 to 3 like week break, and wow, I was like, okay, maybe I was a little burnt out. Like maybe I was a little stressed out. And now I'm like kind of in a much less depressive state and like a lot better mental. But so I think I have experienced burnout, but just not as directly as other people have experienced it. But for me, man, managing burnout, dude, like if I was to go on another 1 year grind or 2 year grind right now, there are some things in my life, dude, that I would not compromise, bro.
Mhm.
Like I would not compromise my morning routine, which is like waking up, having a small little breakfast, going to the gym, getting my 45 minutes to an hour at the gym, coming home, making food for myself, making food for Mel, and like feeding the family, and then the little cat. Like there are just some things outside of gaming that I will just no longer compromise on. And
Mhm.
this is for my mental well-being. This is for my physical well-being. And I'm gonna actually I have this is a very specific thing, okay? But like I believe that everyone on their path to like a passion project, I'm just going to relate to esports. So if you're like an upcoming pro or upcoming player, I believe that at some point in time, you will have this like very deep philosophical conversation with yourself of like, what am I willing to sacrifice to succeed? Right.
Mhm.
And I feel like when I was a little younger, my answer to that was like literally everything.
Yep.
Like I'm willing to give up fucking everything, dude. Sorry, can I swear?
Feel free.
So like I'm willing to give up fucking everything, right, for my success. Like, and I've had this conversation with myself, dude. And this is some real shit. Like I no BS. Like I've had this conversation with myself. I told myself that I'm willing to compromise my health. I'm willing to sacrifice like time with my friends, like my personal life. I'm willing to sacrifice like this time, and I literally said I'm willing to sacrifice literally everything for success, bro. And I had this conversation with myself. And I truly believe that everyone who has like some level of self-awareness will have these similar conversations with themselves. Like, what am I actually willing to give up to like reach this level of success that I want to?
Mhm.
And when as soon as you feel like your answer is everything, stop. Like literally just fucking stop, dude.
Hmm.
Stop yourself. Don't give up everything. Don't sacrifice everything in your life to succeed.
This
Because
is like the most anti-red pill answer I've ever heard, and I love it.
yeah, I know it sounds really stupid, right? But like as soon as you go into this, I'm willing to give up everything for my success, you've already almost lost the game, in my opinion. because now you've put in so much mental stock and like mental stress on this like level, this arbitrary abstract form of success, that anytime you feel like you're not succeeding or you're not reaching the level that you want to reach at, it will like, you will have such strong emotional storms inside you that will just like destroy you. And you'll experience such high elevated levels of stress, anxiety, depression, all these things, dude. Like there's so many paths to success, guys. Like there are so many paths to succeed. And literally just watch the tennis documentary, watch these basketball documentaries, watch all these different documentaries, dude, and you'll realize that every person is so unique. Like some people are super chill, super chill. They're not, they have a very calm lifestyle. They're very like nonchalant about it. They're very balanced. They work out, they have this healthy lifestyle, they have girlfriends, they have all this, right? Like they have so many things that some people would consider like waste of time. So I could be, these people that have these things will never succeed because they're not putting in all their hours. Like, dude, no, there's no formula, dude. There really isn't a formula. So like, don't sacrifice your health, guys. Do not sacrifice it, bro. It's not worth it. It's literally not worth it, bro. Just work out. Make sure you take care of your physical body. It's the only one you're gonna have unless we get like, unless we hit the cyberpunk world where we have cybernetics. Then maybe you have a different conversation when you can be a transhuman. That's cool. Transhumanism refers to like cybernetics, by the way, not like.
What's your first body part that you're replacing?
Oh, I would replace my left hand like instantly.
Okay.
Just get rid of it, dude. Give me a cybernetic left hand for my keyboard hand. I'll never experience carpal tunnel again. I'm chilling.
Nice. I think I'm replacing my knees. My knees and my ankles,
knees,
probably.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Knees are good ones too. But yeah, like you know what I'm saying, dude? Like
100%.
Like now, and this is weird because I've only like recently entered this like amazing flow that I'm in, and this is a very different. This is, I don't know, dude. It feels different than my other flows, honestly. I'm in a much more like healthy, balanced lifestyle currently. Like I work out, I take care of my physical health, and that helps me with my mental health, and that helps me with my decisions in life, and that helps me with my work ethic, and that helps. It all compounds on top of itself. So like my advice to people, if you want to manage your burnout and you end up having this conversation with yourself about what am I willing to sacrifice, make sure the answer is not everything. Like have something. If you don't care about working out and like doing all that shit, just make sure you're going on walks. Make sure you're like getting your blood flowing. Make sure you're getting some sort of like endorphins from something. Like don't sacrifice everything. Don't sacrifice your physical health. You know, maybe have a little bit of time for your family and friends. If you have people you care about, spend some time with them. If you have a pet, spend some time with them. Like don't give up everything, guys. Seriously, it's just going to cause more problems for you, and your mental health is going to be absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, I think that, it's very like in vogue. I guess we're starting to get a little bit more aware as a society, but it's been very in vogue for the last, I don't know, 50 years that this like hustle culture, you have to just be putting in the work every single second, every single moment of your entire existence has to be like towards this success, whatever the success is, whether it's money or being the best at something. But I mean, I can relate so heavily to this. I've had moments where I've like reached my breaking point a couple of times, and I have taken the break. I've tried to push through it for like even years at a time, but then I've actually finally taken that break, and I can tell you that I think probably the happiest I've ever been in my entire life, outside of maybe getting married and like a couple of other things, but was literally this one moment where I quit my job. I literally went to my family. My family had this property in like the middle of nowhere in the United States, just like this little farm. I went and just like was like the caretaker of the house. I cleaned the house for like 3 weeks. Just lived in this house every day. I would just like go lie out on a raft in the middle of a pond for like 2.5 hours. And I had no work and I had no responsibilities, and I just like existed. And it was the best. It was the best. And the whole time I was so productive because I was like free of blocks, where it's like right now I can be perfectly honest. I have a lot of blocks around like my content creation, just because
like mental blocks.
Mental blocks and just like, emotional blocks, where it's like,
gotcha.
Is this good enough for me to put out? Is this idea good enough? I don't know. I don't really want to spend all this time working on this thing. And like, when I'm in a good state, I just do things and I don't care what the results are. But it's like a lot of my content these days, I'm so far in the future on like the release and the reception and like how much work I'm going to have invested to make it good, where I just don't even want to do it.
Yeah,
And
it's
and I
overwhelming.
recognize that that's happening, but I definitely have also been in places where I just do things and I put them out and I just move on. And I get so much done when I'm doing that because I'm not like so concerned with the results of the action, and I'm
Yeah,
just
like the
doing the thing.
perfectionism of it all.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
No, for sure. Yeah, for sure, bro. For sure.
That's some really good advice, Roy. I appreciate you saying all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that just telling you how I learned it, man. Like, dude, I'm telling you right now, if I was in this flow when I started playing Valorant, I would be like 5 times the player I was.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I believe it. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about that the rituals. You kind of touched on some rituals. Um, do you have any specific pregame rituals that you go through when you're about to compete for a match, like a meaningful match that really matters to you?
Um, I've had some rituals. I have not had like anything consistently, but there is one thing that I love doing that for me helps me. This might be like an IGL thing or like a leadership thing. I don't know. But I like to do this thing where I wake up, I have like my little morning, little cardio that I do, 10, 15 minutes. Now I would just go to the gym, but back then it would just be at home workouts. And I would just wake up, chug some water, work out, eat some food, and then right after that, I would do this thing that for me personally, is like super important, which is just like overcoming the mental thoughts. And for me, that involves taking a shower. And it's like, what the hell, Roy? You took a shower? That was hard. And that's not the point, guys. Relax, okay? Um, I would take a normal hot shower, but at the end, I would turn it to maximum cold.
Hmm.
And in this moment where like you're so comfortable and like, this feels amazing, nice warm shower. This feels great. As soon as as soon as I know it's time for me to blast a cold water, I start to have this like mental dialogue with myself where like my brain is literally trying to convince me to not do it.
Hmm.
Like my brain wants to avoid the pain, dude. It seeks pleasure and it avoids pain. Very simple brain, very caveman brain that we have. And in this moment is where I feel like I'm regaining control of myself and my existence. And I know that sounds super fucking stupid. Okay. I know how it sounds. But in that moment where I'm like about to turn the water cold and my brain's telling me no, 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 or making up excuses like, nah, you can skip a day. It's okay. And it'll come up with all these like really stupid and really like very snaky thoughts that will just like try to get you to not do it. And just having control and just doing it, even though your brain is telling you not to, for me personally, it helps me so much. And it just blasting that cold water and my body goes into shock and I have to like take a deep breath, regain control of my physical, regain control of my mental. Just that in that moment, in that 2 minutes that I'm in this cold water, it is so good for me. And that ritual has been so good for me as well in matches, because when in matches, I'm having thoughts like thoughts of doubt, or I'm having like negative thoughts. I realize that that's no different than what I was experiencing in the shower. Whereas like as soon as I was about to turn on that cold water, it's the same shit, dude. You're feeling pain, you're feeling discomfort. So your brain is trying to get you out of the moment and it's trying to get you out of this situation into like a different realm so that you have a more pleasurable experience. But at
Okay.
the end, that pleasurable experience is actually making you play worse because you're not in the fucking moment, right? You have to be in the moment to play well. So that
Cool.
for me is my ritual. Sorry for that long rant, but
No,
that's
that's
like my
good.
thought process.
That's good. No, I appreciate that. It's not just like take cold showers, bro. It's like here's the reason why I personally do it, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely valuable. All right, let's shift focus from all of the sort of like personal development type of things, and let's talk a little bit about Valorant specifically.
Okay.
Um, I don't know how much of the VCT you've been watching. Probably a decent amount.
Every single game, every single day, all
Okay.
day, every day. You know how it is.
Yeah, I do for sure.
Up to date.
Um, so looking at some of these teams, we've had a very interesting kind of roller coaster of a VCT. It was essentially what I
For
expected
sure.
was going to happen. First year of this partnership system, lots of people trying a lot of different things to see what works best, and seemingly very few teams actually like understand what it takes to build a good team. At least in year one so far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, are there any things that you've seen from let's start with the Americas. Are there any teams in the Americas aside from, let's say, Cloud9, because they've kind of been the anomaly? I think they've sort of
Yeah,
like
for
proved
sure.
they've sort of like proved what it means to be a team, maybe more so than any other team. Um, are there any teams in the Americas that have like surprised you with how good or how bad they've been so far? And what do you think from your own sort of like external perspective is maybe causing some of these good performances or issues?
Yeah. So am I allowed to say loud?
Yeah.
Because I know it sounds weird to say now, but I feel like we have different context now because they are 7-0. But I think a
Mhm.
lot of people, when this initial Loud roster formed and they picked up all these like really young guns, there was like a lot of doubt surrounding Loud's and Loud's performance.
And their coach left, so yeah.
Yeah, they kept Fraud, who was assistant coaching the team anyway.
Right.
Um, but I think there was a lot of doubt surrounding this team because they picked up Tuiz and Kaozin, and like, dude, these players are just like literally like they were nobodies before. They're just 17-year-olds who just started playing in like tier 3 in Brazil, and they ended up joining Loud, which is crazy talk. So I think Loud has surprised me quite a bit. And dude, I think about this a lot. Okay, I think about why is it that the Brazilian region and like the LATAM region is like giving birth to so many insane players. Like why is that? Why are Brazilian players just innately different than NA players? Why are they so consistent? How come they operate in a team so well? How are they pumping out 17-year-olds who are just like look like they've been playing pro for 20 years, dude? Can you explain like where is this coming from?
You actually asking me?
Yeah, like legitimately, like where I have some thoughts of where this comes from, and I have my own opinions, but I'm always curious to hear other people's opinions. Like,
Okay.
how come these Brazilians are 17-year-olds, like 16 to 18-year-olds, and they feel like they are literally born to play at a pro level?
Well, so my perception on the Brazilian and like the greater like Latin American culture in
Mm-hmm.
sports, just like sports in general, not just esports, is that first of all, I think that like these cultures have a much more sort of like family oriented uh like system.
Okay,
That's at least what I've experienced
so
because
like
I
deeper interpersonal like relationships.
yeah, one of my cousins married um a Mexican guy, and I can just see like even their sort of like small nuclear family within my greater family is
Mm-hmm.
like extra close with even like their cousins and like their external non-nuclear family members. And I think that there's just sort of like a greater community where there's like there's almost like more pride in like being part of a collective in these cultures than there is in America, I think.
Which is like more individualism.
Yeah, and so it's easier. And again, I'm not Brazilian. I'm not
For
like
sure, for sure.
Chilean.
Neither of us are.
I don't actually know, but to me it seems like there's maybe a little bit more buy-in to being part of the team with some of these players and some of these teams, and a little bit more of like a culture of like respecting your elders in these areas as well.
Like
Because
respect for authority or like respect for people in higher positions.
yeah, respect for people who have proven that they're good. Because like
Gotcha.
I feel like in at least, and I can say this from myself even, where it's like if I'm good at something and I have the opportunity to talk to somebody who is a proven even better person than me, some part of my brain is always like, I bet I probably still know better than this person. But to me, it seems like if you're like Ronaldinho, for example, like every soccer player, football player in Brazil grows up idolizing this guy or idolizing Pele, and they if they had the chance to like interact with that person, I feel like they would just like become a sponge. Whereas I feel like in American culture, there's a little bit more of like, I bet I could be better than this person, as opposed to like,
I see.
let me like absorb this person's knowledge and talent and kind of like grow into them as opposed to surpassing them maybe.
Okay, like a willingness to be mentored, pretty much.
Exactly. And again, I could be totally wrong.
For
And
sure, for sure. It is all speculations, honestly.
I will say that I've seen a lot of inconsistencies in the Brazilian players because they are like super willing to take risks. But it kind of goes back to that earlier conversation that we had about fearlessness. There's also this fearlessness that I see with the Latin American players,
They're
especially
fierce, bro. They are fierce
especially the
competitors, dude.
Brazilians, where it's like they just firmly believe that what they're doing is the correct move. There's no doubt. They do things, and it's 100% commitment every time they do it. And that even goes back to like the being part of a team, in my opinion. It's just like, I'm part of this team. I'm going to be part of this team. I'm going to make this move. I'm going to make this move. And it's like, there is no secondary path. It's just, you're doing this because that's like the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I have this like, I don't know I don't know where even I got this impression, but I feel like Brazilian players are so fierce, bro.
Yeah,
They are truly fierce competitors. Like outside the server, they're like the nicest people ever, dude. It makes no sense. Like, how can you be so nice outside the server, but in the server, I feel like they operate on a level like you said, where it's like every decision they make feels like it's part of the team's plan. So they have like the sense of self is removed from the equation, where it's like, this is what I need to do, this is what I'm doing, and there's like there's like zero questions or zero hesitation happening between like, this needs to be done and I'm doing it, you know. I think you're right on that. I think there is that aspect of it for sure. But yeah, I think Loud has surprised me for sure. I think, dude, it just, I watch them and I don't know if it's fraud. I don't know who to give credit to. Maybe the entire team I should be giving credit to, but they play the simplest form of Valorant to me. Like them and Fnatic are on like completely opposing ends, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Like, Fnatic has such a complex, super perfectionist, like very like, it almost feels like a very specific, they have a very specific formula. But Loud, I feel like, have extremely simplified their game plan, and they're totally okay with not always having the perfect solutions, as long as they feel like in that moment their odds are good. They just take their odds right then and there. And they have a pretty good read on like, you know, the general meta setups that people are running, and they're really good at abusing like the meta spreads and the meta setups, and they're really good at just like really simplifying the game plan and just executing it to a T.
That's a really good point. I kind of I feel like you are onto something there, where it's like Fnatic, it kind of goes back to this like individual thing that we talked about, where everybody has like their own individual approach to things. But with Fnatic, you have, and I guess we're just talking about the two best teams in the world at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, arguably, yeah, but yeah, pretty much.
But it's like Fnatic is sort of like they're like a NASA scientist. It's like they've done the calculations, they've studied quantum mechanics. They're
running theoretical physics, dude, 100%.
Exactly, and it's like, this is gonna happen, then this is gonna happen, then this is gonna happen, then this is gonna happen. And sometimes you even see this when things go wrong, where like they look a little lost. They will look a little lost in some of their winning games when teams like surprise them.
Yep. If someone's not doing what they're not supposed to be doing, everything looks broken.
Yep. And then you look at Loud, and it's like all for one, one for all, right? It's like
100%.
This is the play, and even if it's not perfect, at least we do it together, and we're all gonna go down with the ship, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's like sometimes they get destroyed because they like 5-man just charge in or contact into like a 4-stack that they're not expecting. But most of the time it's like, we're going here, it's not working, and we're swerving, and we're around the problem, and now we're like in the lead, right? Like,
right.
They're more adaptable. And it also is interesting with how both of these teams, I'd say, have probably innovated the most as far as like compositions and stuff, outside of maybe like Navi and a couple others. And with Fnatic, again, it's sort of like we've looked at the map. We think that this particular part of the geometry is best served by this piece of utility, so we're going to use this agent. And Loud's like, let's try something a little different and just see what happens. And like, and you see that with like they did this like Harbor, Viper, Sky, Jet, Killjoy comp.
The Latam comp
ran it on every single map, and people were like, "Oh, Loud's doing it. It must be good." And they started running it, and they all looked terrible.
Terrible doing it. They're missing the point, dude.
Exactly. They're totally missing the point. They don't understand why Loud's doing it, and they don't have the commitment to like get through the problems, because I guarantee you Loud started out in scrims and they looked terrible on that comp for the first couple weeks, and then they just started running people over. And
for sure,
it is really interesting how those two teams have sort of like navigated their way to the top through different paths,
isn't it? It's wild, man.
that's just the game, man. That's just
For sure.
Valorant in a nutshell. Is the interpretation of the game is still open, but there's a lot of copy pasting going on,
Oh yeah, for sure.
even at the highest levels.
Man, Mel and I were talking about this last night because, dude, Mel and I talk about Mel and I are literally living and breathing Valorant pretty much. Like,
Yeah, even though you're trying to take a break, you're still
eh,
living with, arguably the best female player in the world,
yeah,
who's
yeah,
IGLing one of the top teams there. So you can't
yeah,
get away.
and like we're always talking Valorant, always. Um, and yeah, we were talking yesterday about. I was bringing up to the fact that like I feel like the current meta in Valorant is super fucking weird. Like something just feels off about it.
Hmm.
And I can't quite pinpoint what feels off about it, but it feels like everyone is copy pasting, and because everyone is copy pasting, really like the innovation is only within the copy paste, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, this is Roy going on his crazy, come up with crazy comp, spiel, but it's not really that. It's more so about like, why hasn't there been an evolution of like anti-meta comps yet? Like, are there even anti-meta comps in Valorant? Like, do they exist? How come no one can counter the rush B meta on Pearl? Like, surely there's a way to counter it, dude. Like,
100%.
and how come no one is running anti-meta comps? How come no one is running an anti-meta comp on Split? Like, dude, people are running some shit comps on Split. Like, they're running double duelist, double controller, single initiator, dude.
Hmm.
Like these comps make no sense, dude. Like they do because the map is like, and obviously the flaws of the map design has been, and this is something I talk about a lot about on my Twitter. Like the map flaw is becoming very apparent over time,
Hmm.
and people are just beginning to abuse that. But like, there are surely comps that can counter double duelist, double controller. No, like,
Yeah.
and
There
how
has to
come?
there has to be there's so many pieces that I feel like we're all kind of operating within like this tiny little box, and
Aren't
and
we?
the edges of the boxes have been like defined by the top 3 or 4 teams, and everybody
For
is
sure,
like just inside the box.
hundred
There has to
percent,
be other stuff outside. There has to be.
100%. So then her and I were talking about like, why aren't people running anti-meta comps? Like, why aren't like scans technically counters to double controllers? So wouldn't running fade on a map like Split just absolutely destroy, like, or running some sort of like scan character, wouldn't that destroy like a lot of these comps? Or what about like running KO? Like, wouldn't KO absolutely dismantle this meta by just like able to clear A pressure on Split, for example? And like we're always talking about it, and like I don't know what it is, dude. It's like something just feels off with the current strategy in Valorant, and congratulations to Lad for being like pioneers, and at least in some regard. But I think Cloud9 is one of the only. Cloud9 is another team, dude. Cloud9 is a team. And I know it's easy to say because they're on their hot streak right now, but they are cooking. Like they're one of the only teams that actually is cooking.
Hmm.
Like they
They're running
have.
Phoenix. They're trying weird stuff.
Yes, dude. They have solid. They came up with a pretty good counter comp on Pearl with the Sage Phoenix because you flash through the smokes, and you also have slows to interrupt all the like the sort of like dive comp that people are running on Pearl. And then they're running, some pretty good comps on Lotus that have like they have the same control you would with Breach, but they also run double controller. So it's like C9 is cooking. There's some cooking happening, but I feel like the level of cookingness we're not chefing enough in right now. I think at the pro level.
I totally agree. I mean, we talked about this a lot when we were on a team together. I was constantly like, why don't we try this agent? And you're like, no, we got to get this drilled in. We have to get these
Yeah,
players.
I mean, we had our fundamentals were terrible though.
We,
It's like we had bigger problems.
yeah, I think that definitely is part of it, where it's like how much experimentation will take away from people just doing basic things correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's best to just run, the KO, Jet, Killjoy, Omen, and Sova on Ascent, and just like work on taking med control and breaking the utility and shooting the dart, like getting all the basic stuff
Right,
down.
exactly.
And also I think another thing that is a problem, and I noticed this in Dota as well, where like the meta churn was really, I mean, the entire game is about meta churn basically, and I watched Dota for 10 years, and it's literally the entire game is new hero comes out, Valve patches every single hero, changes some of their abilities. Now new stuff is strong. People abuse it. People figure out how to counter that. People figure out how to counter that. It cycles back around to like old heroes are good because they were nerfed, but
Mm-hmm.
now the play style is good and the numbers don't matter anymore. And it's like there is this cyclical nature with these hero-based games, and it's just something that people have not bought into in Valorant. Maybe there's not enough agents to force that yet, but
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
that's definitely part of it. But like even with your Pearl example, okay, I think both you and I agree that the biggest shift in that map was the removal of Chamber. Right, B long used to be
100%.
very difficult to take because Chamber would just sit there and you couldn't get him off the angle unless you threw your entire utility kit. And
Yep.
now B long is the easiest thing to take because there's nobody just sitting there with an op indefinitely watching you.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't
And
teams running Yoru op? They could essentially take the same
the same
positions
thing.
as Chamber with the Yoru, because his teleport lasts long enough to essentially sit there for the entire round if you want to. And you could just replace the Jet with the Yoru. You probably have to shuffle a couple other things around. Maybe you need something else to fill the smokes that Jet provides for certain parts of the map. There's definitely ways to like cut little pieces of utility from one agent and bring it in to replace another one. And there's just not enough experimentation going. But teams are also incentivized not to do that, because if you're winning, you just keep running what's winning. And if you're losing,
100%.
you probably just want to copy what's winning instead of experimenting a lot of the time. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that makes complete sense too.
but I think we'll get there. Maybe they're just waiting for a new Roy team to cook up some new stuff and just take the tier 2 scene by storm.
Oh yeah, or a new Sentinel that isn't absolutely terrible.
that
One or the
also
other.
could be part of it. Overall, how are you feeling about the pro scene? Do you think that the VCT stuff has done what it's supposed to do? Do you think it's on the right path as far as like the organization and the partnership leagues and the tier 2 scene?
I think the partnership is doing pretty well. I think the first year has been. I mean, dude, this is a young game, right? Like the first year has been pretty successful, I would say. I have a lot of things to say about the tier 2 scene though, and I've not been afraid to be outspoken about it on Twitter. Like I've talked about it multiple times. I think tier 2, I feel like, has not been planned out as well as it could have been by Riot. I think Riot has done a pretty poor job at planning out the schedule and planning out everything for tier 2. And I think the way they're approaching it is a little weird. And not only is it weird, dude, but it's like they have different formats for different regions. Like, why the hell are we doing that? Like, how come like the APAC challengers has a system that makes way more sense than what we're experiencing in NA, where they're willing to recycle more teams and then have qualifiers and like have different things. How come that's
Yeah,
happening? But in NA, it's like it feels like if you don't qualify for challengers, like you're out for a whole year, dude. Like what?
yeah, I think that this first year has been really detrimental to the North American scene. I
Yeah,
think
for the tier 2 and 3.
yeah, Europe is doing fine, although like I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Europe's at in like 2 years, because I think there's a lot of complaints about people saying that the talent is too spread in Europe because there's like 10 different leagues, and so you
Yeah,
have
they
like
have a
one
lot
or
of
two
leagues.
good teams.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives a lot of opportunities for people to develop and get interested in the game and try it out and stuff like that. And then I really like watching the Japanese scene, even though it's like maybe the worst scene out of all of them. But I've watched a lot of the Japanese scene, and their challenger system seems to be great. Like there's still lots of signed orgs in tier 2.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like playing, the playoff system seems good, like the production is good, everything seems like really well
Yeah.
run. And then in North America, it's like, I mean, how many people had to retire essentially after the Challengers was over? There were so many people that were interested in the game, and so many of them have gone back to school now, or like dropped the game or done something else. And it's kind of sad, honestly, because there was so much talent in North America in the first 2 years.
100%. That's like a reason why I'm kind of like on this sort of break that I'm in right now, right? It's like, dude, I theoretically I went through the site, like the thought of creating a new team, and I looked at all the free agents, and I said, wow, this is like this is rough, dude. It's rough. And it's like convincing some of the players to dedicate a lot of time when they could just be playing college Valorant is so difficult, because like I don't have a specific goal right now. Like there's no goal if you're a tier 3 player except to get noticed by challenger teams, right?
And how do you even do that? Because I guess you play like the little $2,000 weekly tournaments, and nobody watches those, and they're not even streamed.
Yeah, it's literally monthly now. But yeah, like literally you're playing one tournament a month, or you're playing like the 1K weeklies or some shit. I don't even know at this point. It's all scuffed. But like I said, the structure I don't mind that much, either, although it is clearly flawed. What I do really mind and what really bothers me is just like the lack of communication and kind of sort of like the intent from Riot. Like, what is the intent here? Like, and I understand they want to do, the whole idea is they want to keep orgs like DSG and Moist because those orgs bring so much for the Challenger League.
Hmm.
Like they want to keep those teams as much as possible, and they want to make sure these orgs are still involved as much as possible, which is why they're only doing like two teams getting relegated. They want to
Hmm.
try to keep these orgs, and they want to try to keep these teams, and rightfully so. Like I'm totally for that, and it makes sense to me. But maybe there is a system that is like outside the box that they could be exploring, where they can offer like a pseudo partnership for some orgs within challengers as well, and then have like more spots that are just like open for like recycling.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some things they could like, again, I don't have the perfect solution, so I can't offer the perfect solution. But I think there is a middle ground that can be taken that is like both in the favor of Riot and in the favor of like upcoming players and talent and stuff like that, and orgs as well.
Hmm.
I think there is a more favorable middle ground that we could be taking.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, just a couple more questions, then I'll let you go. I know you got some coaching stuff coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Um, where do you think that this game will be in like 2, 3 years? Do you think it's going to be healthy, balanced across the whole world? Is it going to be like Counter Strike, where it's like all in one location essentially? Is it going to be like Overwatch, where it's like China and Korea own the entire league at this point? Or where's Valorant's future in a couple years from now, in your opinion?
Hmm. Um, I think I have a strong feeling that it's going to be just like it is right now, but just a little bit more exacerbated in the sense that like NA is going to become like NA is the content region, dude. Let's be real. Like, you know what I mean? Like we make some of the best content. We have like the most. Again, I don't have the hard stats to back up my opinion here, just purely an opinion. But at least it feels like we have the most eyes on North American region than other regions. But I do feel like there's low key gonna be like the APAC region is low key gonna pop, I think, as well.
Mm,
It's gonna take a little time, but when it does, I think it'll be huge, especially with like the involvement of like the Chinese the player base and like the Japanese player base and the Korean player base. Like that those player bases are only going to keep growing from here.
mhm.
And I mean, Overwatch is let's be real, Overwatch is rough. It's rough
Yeah.
right now. So a lot of those players that are like really into the FPS games are going to want to find a new home, and they're not going to go to Counter Strike. Like
Right.
they're going to go to Valorant, which is like the most like Overwatch out of the shooter games, or
Mhm.
they might go into Rainbow Six, I guess. But I don't know if that's popular in Asia or not. But yeah, I think in Asia, I think we'll see a pretty big boom in Valorant over the next 2 to 3 years, no doubt. I think Europe will probably steadily grow, and I think NA will steadily grow as well. But I'm curious to see if our perception on like the Latam region is going to change, because I'm pretty sure they have a huge base, dude. Like
Yeah.
every time there's a Brazilian game going on, or every time there's a Latam game going on, like the viewership just seems so spiked. So clearly, there's like a massive demographic in those regions.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the success of Brazil so far has definitely helped. There's that saying, it's like the best remedy for problems is just winning
Winning,
in most
yeah,
cases. So,
real shit, dude.
all right, Roy, let me finish you off with one last sort of deep question, but something you can just take this wherever you want, which is what is a little bit of advice that you would give to your younger self? Doesn't have to be esports related, can just
Hmm.
be, talk to, like, let's say like 13-year-old Roy.
Um, yeah, I would say the number one thing is if you know what you love at that age, don't let people dissuade you from it. But also make sure that you listen to people around you, you listen to your family, and you understand where they're coming from when they tell you things like, "Hey, we don't want you to doing this." Like, understand why they're saying that, and understand if there's a legitimate practical career choice in this industry that you want to pursue. What are your goals within that industry? If you want to go pro, then how can I put myself in success? And you make sure you have like a pretty practical, more like, it's good to have one leg in dreamland, but make sure your other leg is in like practicality and in real life, and just like make sure you're sort of grounding yourself to some degree, and just like really just go at it once you feel like, okay, you have a pretty good formula. Just trust yourself, really follow your own intuition, go all in. Not so all in that you sacrifice everything in your life though. Make sure you have some sort of balance. Like have some goals outside of gaming, dude. Like have some goals for your body. Like I want to be stronger. Have some. I want to be faster. I want to have more cardio, more resistant. Whatever it might be, just have like some sort of goal outside of gaming that no matter what happens in one aspect of your life, you'll always have that at least to fall back on, just for like some sense of gratification or like achievement, I guess. The other thing,
Learn some life skills.
yeah, for real, for real. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with learning skills as well, like actual skills. Maybe not for 13-year-olds. Like if you're 13 and you're learning coding and JavaScript and Python, like hey, props to you, dude.
Yeah.
But it's like if you're a little older, if you're like 18, you're about to exit high school, like there's absolutely nothing wrong with like gaming and then like spending 2 to 3 hours on the side, like taking lessons on like some sort of like coding or just some sort of like practical skill that you can have as well. Just so that if you find yourself in a situation where you want to make some money and like you want to start enjoying your life a little bit, but you don't have any money and you don't have anything to fall back on, at least you'll have like that skill that you've been developing on the side to help you. I think that will relieve a little bit of the stress of competing as well. So you can focus on what you enjoy the most, which is competing. I'd also say that, make sure like really try to not enter the mindless grinding. Like don't fall into the mindless grinding route. Like grind, but grind with purpose. Don't waste your time. Make sure everything you're doing, it has intent, and it's, you're not just doing it to escape things from your life. Make sure it's all intentful. You're aware of your decisions. You're doing things with purpose. When you're, let's say, hey, if I have 2 hours to play Valorant today, then I'm gonna play Valorant with full intent, no distractions, full focus. If I have 6 hours to play Valorant, then I want to make sure like, hey, I have 6 hours. I'm gonna break it down like 2 hours here, 1 hour VOD review, 1 hour aim training, 3 hours of gameplay or whatever. It's like really just like schedule your life. Don't go through the motions. Don't get pushed around left and right by life. Like make sure you have a pretty decent plan. Try to stick to it and just keep fixing the plan until it makes more sense for you. And then eventually you'll stumble on something that you'll be happy with, and hopefully things will work out for you.
Perfect. What are you doing in 2023, and where can people follow you, or what do you have to plug for me today?
Hey, is this my sellout phase?
Oh yeah.
Let's go. Okay. So if you are that player that is actually looking for mentorship, I do offer Medify coaching. So if you're looking to do individual coaching and you want some advice from me, I'm more than happy to meet up with you guys. I do have, if you just want like a free consultation, I have a free session as well. You can just go on my Medify and book the free consultation. We can talk it out, see what your goals are, and I can point you in the right direction. And then if you want, coaching, or if you want like really some nitty gritty advice and coaching and gaming and just general Valorant related things, I'm more than happy to schedule sessions with you guys as well. You can just check out my Medify. It's medify.gg at Roy. Easy.
Link will be below the video as well.
Yes. Sweet. Thanks. And besides that, just follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is pretty cool, at Real StrongLegs. I talk about Valorant. I talk about random stuff. I meme. I do all this bunch of stuff. But besides that, that's pretty much all I have to sell out for now. Most importantly, just believe in yourselves and yeah, just go at it.
Perfect. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. Take it easy.